So easy to read, so wonderful. I even told Maharaj that I found out things about him I never knew before. And that was really wonderful. It's always nice to get a brief look at how a devotee came to Krishna consciousness and what their journey was, what their path was. And that's what this book, The Ocean of Mercy, is about. It's the path of Bhakti Maharaj coming in contact with the pure devotee of the Lord, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. And in this book, we get a real nice dose of how a devotee progresses. And it was just wonderfully done. It was just beautifully written, very easy to read, very smooth, and it tells you things that are just, you can't stop. Once you open it, you can't stop. Seriously, I know you hear that a lot, but I'm telling you honestly, when you start reading this book, you can find yourself 50 pages and, wow, this is great. And it's one thing after another. Maharaj power-packed this book with information, wonderful things. So we're very, very honored to have the opportunity to present this book, launch this book here in New Dwarkadam, Los Angeles. The North American BBT has its offices here, right across the street. The North American BBT is probably the second largest BBT in the world. The first is India BBT, and North America is right behind them. We do approximately over about 1.2 million worth of literatures every year. We do about 1.7 million in sales of Srila Prabhupada's books annually. So we're doing something very nice. So when we could add this to our arsenal of literatures that we can distribute, we were very happy. So I would like to introduce you my very good friend, His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj Ki Jai.
Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Paschata Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for coming this evening on this occasion of launching this book. This is the first book that I wrote. Srila Prabhupada gave me the assignment to translate his books. So I translated about more than 60 volumes of Srila Prabhupada's books. And I always felt that my job is to translate Prabhupada's books. And that's why I never thought of writing a book myself. And then from time to time, my senior godbrothers kept on requesting me to write my memories of the days with Srila Prabhupada. I came to Krishna consciousness quite late. Late in the sense, about a year before Srila Prabhupada left the planet. Those days, Srila Prabhupada had about 6,000 disciples and about another 3,000-4,000 followers waiting to get initiated by him. So, to approach Srila Prabhupada, to be with Srila Prabhupada was a very, very rare opportunity. But by Srila Prabhupada's causeless mercy, I had the good fortune of being with him constantly for the last few months. For about 9 months, I was with him till Srila Prabhupada left the planet. Those days were very intense with Srila Prabhupada, and many devotees, many of my godbrothers especially, used to insist that I write, and then eventually I did get into it. In 1979, about a year and a half after Srila Prabhupada left the planet, I came to America. When I was in New York, one of my godbrothers, Jogeshwar Prabhu, took me to one of the house programs in Long Island. And while driving, I was asking him, what should I speak about? And he just spontaneously told me that I could speak about my days with Srila Prabhupada. Because everybody wants to hear about Srila Prabhupada. And that's what I did. I spoke that evening about Srila Prabhupada. And when we went back to the temple in Manhattan, Jogeshwar Prabhu told everyone that how nice it was. So then I started to get the requests from the devotees to speak. And for 3 consecutive evenings, I spoke about Srila Prabhupada. Then from New York I went to Toronto, Toronto, yeah. And there, Vishwakarma Prabhu, who was the temple president there, he already got to know about me speaking about my days with Srila Prabhupada. So he requested me to speak on Srila Prabhupada. And there also for 2 evenings I spoke, and those sessions went even longer. I remember the second day we started speaking at about 7:30, and it went on till about 10 o'clock. And anyway, so this is how I started to speak on Srila Prabhupada. And then when it came to this point of writing about my days with Srila Prabhupada, I asked one of my disciples from Holland, Rangaradhika, to transcribe those lectures. And there were quite a few, and so she did a wonderful job. Like she took the essence of those points, those narrations, into about 60 typewritten pages, and then I kind of started to elaborate on them. And then one day I was talking to my very dear and very scholarly godbrother, Garuda Prabhu, about who could edit the book. And Garuda Prabhu suggested Kalachandji Prabhu, Tamal Krishna Maharaj's very wonderful younger brother. And so he actually got in touch with Kalachandji Prabhu and asked him whether he would like to edit the book. And he agreed, very mercifully he agreed. And we are very happy to have Kalachandji Prabhu here today. So, and Kalachandji Prabhu is the head of the English department of Iowa State University. And so his contribution was extremely valuable. And he not only edited the book, but he also kept on suggesting various things, and I tried to comply. And Kalachandji Prabhu, why don't you please come and sit here? And anyway, so that is how we worked on that book over quite a long time, almost a year. Almost a year we worked on. And then when the book was ready, then I spoke to Subhas Prabhu one day, and as Subhas Prabhu mentioned, his reaction was immediate. Oh, sure, we'll print it. I was quite hesitant because the BBT does have a policy of not printing any book as such. He very gracefully, very mercifully agreed to print on the banner of BBT, which is Srila Prabhupada's book printing wing in ISKCON. I actually asked him, but you agreed without even seeing the manuscript. And his response was that I know whatever comes from you will be. Anyway, he himself mentioned about that also. And so that is how the book came about. And anyway, I leave the rest of it up to you. I hope you will like it. The purpose of this book is simply to present the glory of Srila Prabhupada. The name of the book is The Ocean of Mercy, because this book actually, through this book I want to show what an ocean of mercy Srila Prabhupada is. I was just practically an insignificant creature, and he allowed me to come and allowed me to become a speck of dust at his lotus feet. And that is how I feel that my life has some meaning and also certain purpose. Radhanath Maharaj very mercifully wrote the foreword of the book. Maharaj also was here and he was lamenting that he already has a program, not a devotee program, official program organized, so which he could not cancel. He was telling me that had it been a devotee program, then I would have cancelled the thing, but this one I can't. So he wrote the foreword, and Garuda Prabhu wrote the preface. So today is the day when we are presenting this book. I'll request Kalachandji Prabhu to say a few words.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna? So it was really such a, inspirational and instructional experience. Of course, to be able to have association, but to work with such sincere and humble Vaishnava, and that's really what it all was for me. I would really echo Sras Prabhu's comment that this book is a fascinating path to Krishna consciousness and to the feet of Srila Prabhupada. It is simultaneously a glorification of Prabhupada and the story of that path, and also, a memoir as well. And of course, this was a very difficult challenge, I think, for Maharaj, because this would be the only memoir that the subject of the memoir, the person, did not want to be mentioned in the book, practically. He would only, he was almost not there. Everything was told from his lens, but of course we want to be there with Maharaj as he's experiencing these things. And I would say that was for me an incredible experience. I felt like I was in the room. I was right there, and you will have that same experience reading it. You are right there. So I sort of had to, it was a little difficult because I had to to encourage Maharaj to please include more of yourself. Not only did he not want to be in the front of it, but of course he only wanted to glorify Srila Prabhupada. He only wanted to glorify his godbrothers. So, and yet this is also a history. So no criticism, in fact, nothing that could even be perceived as being critical of anyone, of any devotees. It is difficult to tell the history of any time with such a generous approach, and yet I think he succeeds so beautifully. At a time when to tell history has sometimes been taken as a way to set things straight or to move ahead an agenda or to make some criticism, there is none of that whatsoever in this book. There is only love and support of how everyone came around to serve Srila Prabhupada together. And it's really remarkable that someone, Maharaj is mentioning how relatively late he came, but within such a short time was intimately with Srila Prabhupada, serving him very closely in the room at all times. And I think it's a unique and exceptional position. The book is so full of that love that you just can't get away from it. So I would just say, really, it's a book that even I went back to also, I could not put down. And I think that will be everybody's experience, as Prabhu was saying. You just want to be there with him, and you want to be with Maharaj. I'm just so incredibly grateful to have this association and this experience. So, Maharaj, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kalachandji Prabhu. I was telling Kalachandji Prabhu that today I was remembering Tamal Krishna Maharaj very, very much, because I know he would have been very pleased to see this book. And this book also covers, a good part of the book is actually Tamal Krishna Maharaj, because those days Tamal Krishna Maharaj was with Srila Prabhupada all the time. Tamal Krishna Maharaj left all his GBC responsibilities and other official responsibilities in the West, and he went to India just to serve Srila Prabhupada. And he was his secretary, and not only his secretary, he was actually taking care of Srila Prabhupada in all respects. And me and Upendra Prabhu was Prabhupada's personal servant, and him and I were just like two assistants of Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj in serving Srila Prabhupada. And while I had the good fortune of being very close to Srila Prabhupada during those days, I also had that inconceivably good fortune of being very close to His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj also. We lived in the same room for months together, and even after Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, whenever Tamal Krishna Maharaj came to Mayapur, we just stayed together. He just used to make it a point that he would stay with me in my room. And it's like this way, I had the very, very good fortune of having such a merciful association of this very wonderful devotee who knew nothing but how to please Srila Prabhupada and how to serve Srila Prabhupada. He literally offered himself to the service of his divine grace. About printing the book, I also want to mention the wonderful help and support that I got from Archita Prabhu. Like when Bibi Subhas Prabhu decided that BBT would print the book, like Archita Prabhu was the person to be in touch with, and he was guiding me at every step, and I also was very fortunate to have his very wonderful input in that book, in from laying out to the printer and seeing that the book is designed and printed in a proper way, even to the extent of selecting the paper that we would print the book on. Thank you so much, Archita Prabhu. We are also very fortunate to have one of our very dear God brothers, Bharadraj Prabhu, who was also there in Vrindavan, and he also covers a good part of this book. My memories of those days includes him also very nicely. He was very dear to Srila Prabhupada, and I had somehow we became very close from our very first encounter with each other. And he's a brilliant personality, an exceptionally talented artist. He's a wonderful musician and singer, and like those days, some devotees were allowed to come to Prabhupada's room just to chant the holy name. And sometimes some devotees would chant playing the harmonium. And some of them were not really so expert in playing harmonium. Therefore, Prabhupada made it a point that he didn't want anyone to play harmonium while singing. Because Prabhupada, being a musician himself, he could see when they were going off the notes. And then one day, one devotee started to sing playing the harmonium. So Prabhupada told me that shouldn't play harmonium, tell him not to play harmonium. So I went and told the devotee that Prabhupada didn't want him to play the harmonium. So he stopped. But then when I came back to Prabhupada's bedside, Prabhupada asked me, who was that? So I said, it was Bharadraj Prabhu. And Prabhupada said, then he can play. Bharadraj Prabhu, please come and sit here. This also shows, upon the book has some section. Bharadraj Prabhu is coming from Russian background, and one day he was telling me how Russian language is very close to Sanskrit. I couldn't accept that, so I said, so then I got into kind of asking him, okay, what's the word? I said it in English. I said, what's the Russian for that? And how is it close to Sanskrit? And the first one I asked was a girl. And he said, Sanskrit, Devi, and Russian, Devochka. And then this discussion was going on in the garden next to Srila Prabhupada's quarters. So then behind him I saw the door, so I asked him, door, and he said, Sanskrit, dwar, and Russian, dver. So in this way, he just kept on telling the similarity between the Sanskrit and Russian. So we could see that he was not only a brilliant artist, an extremely talented singer, but he also is a scholar, both in Sanskrit and Russian. Would you like to say a few words?
I am very much honored by being here with you today, and and witnessing the release of your book, the recounting of those very, very holy days with Srila Prabhupada, and count myself very, very fortunate that we got to experience those very inconceivably important days, those final days with His Divine Grace, and all those who were present at that time, who were specially called, I believe, to be there with Prabhupada, to be so close to Srila Prabhupada, to have such intimate service, to witness his heroic presence, even in the midst of such great tribulation. I think we all, it was hard to imagine the condition that Srila Prabhupada was enduring at that time. All because he wanted to give us more of his association. When I arrived in Vrindavan, about a month before his final departure, it was in response to a kind of a mysterious call. I was here working very, very hard still in hopes that Srila Prabhupada would be well enough to come and see and attend the opening of the first American Transcendental exhibition, which is now called the Bhagavad Gita Museum. Worked for non-stop for 2 years after having been sent by Srila Prabhupada from Vrindavan to do this. And I could not imagine, it's just simply unimaginable to me that Srila Prabhupada would not be there to see the completion, to see the opening. But then the word came that Srila Prabhupada was not coming. He was actually making his progress. He was on his way. He got as far as London, but after London, turned around and went back. So there was a great disappointment, but did not. Still, the hope was there that it was just a temporary setback, and when he has recovered, because India has always been his place of rejuvenation and regaining of his strength, at least from our point of view. That's how it seemed. So when he went back this time, we thought, oh, well, he will be back after he recovers his health in India. So I went back to work and working very hard along with everyone else, and just pushing against all odds to try to complete the exhibition and to have it opened. And so the plan was, so I sent Srila Prabhupada a letter saying that we were very hoping, that we had great hopes that he would return. We had plans that the exhibition would be finished on Janmashtami of that year, 1977. So he received my letter, in which I also suggested that perhaps if he was not able to come for the actual opening, then we would make a film and send it to him. And Prabhupada replied that yes, he would really like that very much. But then, a few days after that, after having written the letter, I was walking somewhere, chanting my japa, and all of a sudden I heard a voice as though it was said right next to me. But there was no one there. And it was Prabhupada's voice. And I heard Prabhupada say, "Come now, I am leaving." And without any further thought, I got a ticket and went. And that morning, when I arrived in New Delhi, waiting to get a ride to Vrindavan, I had found out that there was an incident that had taken place that morning, that Prabhupada had gathered everyone, and he said, "Now I'm going." And of course, he said, "Now I'm going. Krishna wants me to go. He's calling me. I have to go." And so, as I heard it, everyone were you there? At the time when this incident took place? So maybe you can speak about that, because I only heard it through someone else. But can you fill in what happened that morning?
Actually, it was in Rishikesh that Srila Prabhupada, one night, I was with Srila Prabhupada. I used to be with him from 12 to 2 at night. And Prabhupada called me and he said, "The time has come for me to leave this planet. So I want to leave my body in Vrindavan. So please make arrangements to take me to Vrindavan immediately." That came to such a shock, like I was trembling all over, and I just climbed down the stairs, went downstairs and woke up Tamal Krishna Maharaj and told him what Srila Prabhupada told me. And he immediately jumped out of the bed, ran upstairs, and Prabhupada told him the same thing. So that night we packed up, and in the morning we left for Vrindavan. When Srila Prabhupada came to Vrindavan, he also told everybody why he came to Vrindavan. And Prabhupada was preparing to leave. He stopped eating, he stopped drinking. The news already spread all over the world that Srila Prabhupada was going to leave this planet. And the devotees gathered, senior devotees, GBCs, sannyasis, came to Vrindavan, and they requested Srila Prabhupada not to leave. So at that time Prabhupada decided to stay on. Although he came to Vrindavan at that time to leave his body, due to the devotees' request, Prabhupada decided to stay. And then Prabhupada started to take some treatment. Although Prabhupada didn't have any inclination to take treatment, but that time Prabhupada started to take the treatment from one Ayurvedic doctor, Banamali Kaviraj. And his medicine started to heal Srila Prabhupada's condition. And when Srila Prabhupada's condition improved, he decided to come to the West. His plan was first London, then New York, then Gita Nagari, then Los Angeles, and then Hawaii. But when Srila Prabhupada came to London, his condition deteriorated quite drastically. And then Srila Prabhupada cancelled his trip and went back to India. So it was during that time that when he went back, he lost all interest to stay on. And on one occasion he just told devotees that he wanted to leave.
So as I recall that it was on the, I guess this was a second event where the devotees again began to request Srila Prabhupada to please not abandon us.
Yeah, that's true.
Please,
Yeah.
how can you leave us now? What will we do? And then I think it was Kirtan, the way I heard it was Kirtananda Maharaj said, but your books, you have not finished translating the books, your work. And Prabhupada said, my work is done, now this is your work. So, and then after some time, seeing that there was so much intense anguish on a thought that Prabhupada would leave, Prabhupada then again said, all right, I will stay. But it was clearly his final concession, because after that he was pretty much prone most of the time. He hardly ever sat up, not to mention get out of bed. And everything that was done was done. You were assisting. Bhakti Maharaj was there, assisting in so many different ways, constantly, as I recall. And at one point, Prabhupada his sense of humor never waned, though. And while I was speaking about his heroic stance in the face of such, it was obvious that it was just by sheer will and kindness that he remained. That his body was gone. And so one day he used to continue translating work every day, so many hours, and Pradumna was there, and Jayadvaita was there, herself, and they would form a cluster around Prabhupada's head, and someone was holding a microphone, right, because his voice had become just like a whisper. But still he continued to give his purports. And one day he was lecturing, or he was purporting on the verse in Srimad Bhagavatam that talks about how everyone in Vrindavan, there's no envy. Everyone loves everyone else. Everyone worships everyone else. All the beings are just full of love for one another. Envy is absent. And Jayadvaita Maharaj, there was an incident that took place just prior to this moment. Jayadvaita Swami returned from somewhere, he was in Vrindavan, came back in the evening. There was some prasadam saved for him. There was a plate, so he put it down and sat down to eat it. A big monkey came and sat right in the corner of the building where he was sitting. He was outside of Prabhupada's quarters. A big monkey was sitting there. And he was looking down at his plate of prasadam and making faces and indicating that he wanted that food. And Jayadvaita Maharaj he took his stick, kept shooing him off. So he couldn't eat in peace because the monkey kept coming over and looking over the plate. So he related, so he finally somehow or other he managed to eat his prasadam, but all in duress. He was not happy about it. So when Prabhupada was giving that topic, he said, he related the incident to Srila Prabhupada in that moment about the monkey. He said, so how can we say that there's no envy in Vrindavan? This monkey wanted to eat my food. And Prabhupada said, it is, you are the rascal. He said, you should have given it. You don't accuse of others of your own mistakes. So, just a little incident about that. Oh yeah, I know what I was getting to. Prabhupada was always in top shape. Whatever seemed like his condition was, how much trouble he must be experiencing, but he never lost his sense of humor. So, on one occasion, Bhakti Maharaj came in and Prabhupada turned to him and said, what is the use of keeping this body? He said, I have become a bag of bones. That's all. Simply a bag of bones.
Yeah, a set of bones in a bag of skin.
A bag of skin.
Yeah.
And Bhakti Maharaj said, Srila Prabhupada, your body is transcendental. Prabhupada said, well, you can think like that, but I'm a practical man.
Thank you. Subhas Prabhu, will you just...
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Badri Prabhu. Nice. So, I was just going to read a few excerpts from the book Ocean of Mercy. Just a couple of things. I don't want to divulge everything in here, but there's a few nice things that I read that I thought was kind of set the tone for the rest of the book in terms of how Maharaj was on the search for God, for Krishna. And it was neat. I thought it was really cool. The reason I did is because it kind of reminded me of that time period, that era. And, you were a young man on quest, searching. You were interested in lots of things. You like to travel. You start something. First of all, Maharaj's father was in the film industry in Calcutta. And he was somewhat of a westernized person, you said in your book. And it seems that you picked up on that. You really respected your father. You liked your father very much. I thought that was kind of neat. So it kind of sets the tone kind of neat, because one day when I was the temple president in Denver, Colorado, in 1979, I was the president for about a year by that time. I got a call from Rameshwar Swami, who was a GBC here in Jai Sisi Gornitai, Jai Sisi Rukmini Dwakadish. So as I was saying, I was the temple president. So one day Rameshwar calls me up and he says, Bhavas, there's an Indian Swami here in LA and he'd like to come to Denver. And the first thing I said was that, does he speak English? And Maharaj told me later that he was on speakerphone. So when I said, does he speak English, Maharaj heard that. And he got a big laugh out of it. Point being is that Maharaj is probably more educated than I am in English. So here I was thinking, well, you got a Swami from India, but does he speak English? And so when Maharaj came, it was really a wonderful relationship. I think I immediately became attracted to him. We would go in a car. We had a Volvo in Denver. We'd hop in that car and drive all the way up into the mountains. And we would talk for hours. I can't, somehow or other, for hours, wasn't it? Literally hours. And we would do that, sometimes for a couple of days we'd do that. And we were just talking. I can't even remember what we were talking about. It was everything. I think we covered the whole world. But it was so neat because the time flew so fast that it was amazing. And I remember a very memorable thing for me was that my wife Tadit was a pretty good cook, very accomplished actually. And out of the blue one day Maharaj said, I'm going to cook. I want to cook today. So I thought, okay, Jai. I thought that was pretty nice. So I waited, very patiently for Maharaj. He was in the kitchen, he was cooking. And it didn't take him very long, but he came out with this just a mountain of rice. It was a small mountain of rice, and he put it on a plate. And then he just took big slices of butter. It was just chunks of butter. And he put it on that mountain of rice. And it melted right into the rice. The butter melted because it's hot rice. And then he made a little side dish of vegetables, just steamed vegetables. And I thought, well, that's pretty simple. And so, we dove into it. We started eating like anything. I was very hungry, I remember. And I finished that whole mountain of rice. And after I got done eating that mountain of rice, I was so intoxicated. I don't know what got over me. I was laughing for, I think, at least a couple of hours after that.
Rice turns into alcohol in stomach.
Like rice wine or something. It was beautiful. I think the whole thing was that in his association, we had such a wonderful time. I had such a wonderful time with you. And then you cooked and we ate this prasad. And then after that, it was just a perfect situation. So that's very memorable for me.
You made a condition that whenever I came to America, I had to go to Denver.
Right. And it came like that for many years.
Yeah.
For many years. It was
as
like
long
that.
as you were there.
Yeah. Yeah, you continued going there even after I came to LA.
I stopped going there.
Yeah. But
I went there last year after about 25 years or so.
yeah, it's incredible. So I've been here for 30 years, so that's how far back that goes. 1979, I believe it was. And it was always very sweet.
I think you came here in 83.
86.
Yeah.
86, yeah. And so, yeah, it was very memorable. It was very sweet. And I think that when I'm reading this book, that's what I think about. Maharaj is a very unique person. And when I read this book, I could see that his uniqueness was that, yeah, he was very humble, always very humble, and he always made you feel like you were like, you know, one notch above him or something, you know. And then when I'm reading this book, I'm thinking, geez, you know, I mean, here's Maharaj, a young man. He traveled to Iraq, Turkey, you know, Greece, right? Europe. And I barely got off my block. You know, and I grew up in Chicago, and you barely got off your block in Chicago. And then finally moved to Denver, and I was over there in that little town of Denver. And here's Maharaj. He's very humble. He doesn't tell you, but he traveled around the world at a very youthful age, actually, and met so many people. When he traveled, he would stay, you know, in all kinds of places, churches, you know, people's homes. And sometimes, when I read the book, one of his favorite situations was sleeping on the side of the road when no one would pick them up in a sleeping bag. And he felt so good in doing that. He described, and I thought, wow, this is very nice. It was very sweet, very personable. And it just reminded me of that era and that time in America where the youth of America, maybe of the world, I don't know, but at least America, the youth of America was interested in searching and going out and being independent. And Maharaj showed his independence also in a youthful age of 12 years old when he was taking some exams and he didn't pass the exam and he felt very scared to go home and see his father. So what does he do? He buys a ticket on a train. I don't know where you were going. I don't remember. Do you remember where you were going? Somewhere. But in the middle of the night, I guess the train agent or whatever woke him up in the middle of his sleep, and they stopped the train, called his parents. They took him back home. It all turned out good, though. So even at a youthful age, at 12 years old, he was also showing his independence. And I think that was what's really good about Maharaj. He does have this kind of a independence in terms of what he wants, where he wanted to go. And this book is about that. He was searching for spiritual life. He did have spiritual life in his youth. In the interim period, he got a little bit sidetracked, wanted to go to Germany and experience a little bit of Western culture, and made friends. And these friends were very sweet. He mentions in his book that he learned a lot from the Western culture in terms of relationships and how meaningful they were. But there was an incident that happened that kind of changed that for him. And that's what I wanted to read. I'm just leading up to that particular incident. Because that incident's very important. It's a very important aspect of this book, I believe. And it kind of caught my eye. So, you know, there was these friends that he had, as I'm saying. And I'm going to start there. It's just a little caption, maybe a page and a half, or maybe one page. Okay, it says, one Sunday during the summer, when the whole group was sitting together in a restaurant near the harbor, Chuck, one of his friends, asked me in a rather condescending tone, how many people died of starvation in India each year? His disrespect was insulting, but I tried to control my anger. Many people in the West had that misconception, but no one had ever put it so bluntly. Although I was born and brought up in India, I said, I have never seen anyone die of starvation. Oh, come on, he persisted. Everyone knows that. You don't have to defend your country's honor. After all, a fact is a fact. A reality is a reality. India is not poor, I protested. She may not be so advanced or affluent materially, but she is not poor. If she were, why would Columbus have ventured so far to find her? Why was she considered the crown jewel of the British Empire? You may claim whatever you want, he argued, but everybody knows India's poverty-stricken condition. India is not interested in material prosperity, I countered, but in developing her spiritual riches, because material wealth was not her first priority. Foreign invaders found little resistance and stole all they could. End of quote. What are your so-called spiritual riches? That the real goal of life is to achieve emancipation, elevation to a higher consciousness. And he goes, by smoking pot? No, by performing austerities, negating the demands of the body. That's just the excuse of useless bonds. This guy was a rascal. When the others saw that the argument was spiraling out of control, they suggested we stop. But the encounter had left me wounded. Despite my protests, I was painfully aware of how ignorant I was about the heritage and glory of the place of my birth. My patriotism, I realized, was only a sentimental attachment. Although I had a deep connection to India as my motherland, I was unaware of her actual splendor and opulence. That argument and my desire to establish India's greatness led me to probe deeper into my country's spiritual culture. I already knew the importance of spiritual life and was aware of the existence of the soul, but now I felt compelled to learn about life's actual nature, purpose, and ultimate goal. I wrote to my friend Hitu Malkani, whose family had a bookstore in Calcutta, and he sent me a copy of Paul Bruton's A Search in Sacred India, or Secret India, sorry. At first I was vexed by having to read about India's glory from an Englishman, but the more I read, the more I appreciated. Bruton was a journalist who had gone to India on assignment, and while there had been drawn in by its spiritual heritage. He had met many sadhus and finally surrendered himself in discipleship to a well-known spiritual leader from South India, Ramana Maharshi. When I asked Malkani for books that describe India's spiritual philosophies in greater depth, he sent me a few by Swami Vivekananda. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, Paramahamsa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi, Dr. Radhakrishnan's Bhagavad Gita, and a copy of the Vedanta Sutra. Over the next few years, I learned more about the real source of India's greatness, but in the process, I also became aware of a higher knowledge, the futility of material existence, and the need to become free from its bondage. So, I felt this was very significant to me in terms of setting the book, because when you're on a search for spiritual life, you need something to jolt you, to wake you up. And it seems to me like this was a jolt in your quest. And you had so much, from reading previous pages, Maharaj had a desire to find out Western culture, to see what it was about. Everybody was speaking about the West. Go to the West. If you go to the West, everything's so abundant. But this happened to be something that this particular incident helped you become more engrossed in your real culture in India, your Krishna consciousness. So that was one aspect of it. Okay, so on his quest, as he went along, he did go to Rishikesh, you went to Benares, you met Mataji Anandamayi Ma, I think Anandamayi Ma. She's still famous today, isn't she?
She left her body some years ago.
Okay. And so that was just one of the places he went to check out the ashram, to see what was going on there. If he could join that ashram, because that's what Maharaj was looking for, a place to learn about spiritual life, connection with Krishna, with God. And that was one particular ashram he checked out. So he went there to meet her, Anandamayi Ma. And they brought him before her, and she took one look at him and said, he doesn't belong in this ashram. He can't be in this ashram. And then she goes on to say that if he ever surrenders, the whole world will be at his feet. That amazing quote. Yeah, very amazing quote. I didn't quote it exactly. I probably paraphrased it a little bit, I'm sure. But I thought that was very significant because she saw something in him that was more than what she could offer, in my opinion. When I read it, I felt that this is what she was saying, that he has much more than what she can particularly offer to him. And this showed that Maharaj was very sincere in his desire to find a real guru, not just some show bottle, but a real guru, a real spiritual master. And eventually he had association of the devotees. He met the devotees and had their association. And he did end up in Calcutta and Mayapur. Maharaj ended up in Mayapur. And in Mayapur he was tested by Madhusevita Prabhu. Madhusevita Prabhu is my dear friend from Italy, Milano. He's a GBC and a BBT trustee for Mediterranean BBT. And when Maharaj came to Mayapur, Madhusevita Prabhu was the temple commander. And Maharaj said that it befitted him. He was real strict, like a soldier, like an army. And they gave him some chores, some tasks that were not so cool. I think one time you had to take some rice bags, the 100 kilo rice bags or something. And he told you to move them from one place into the kitchen. And that was hardly any one man could even carry that. In fact, when Maharaj was dragging the bag, it ripped open, and they came by and said, okay, you're out of here. They took him out of that. And later on, we find out that these were just different kind of tests that they put devotees through to see how sincere they were in their endeavor to want to be a devotee. And I found that really, that was true. Because in the early days when I became a devotee, they would usually throw us in the kitchen. And most of us at that time, we never knew what it was to even cut an apple. I don't think I ever cut an apple in my life before I became a devotee. Or even an orange, for that matter. So they always put you in the kitchen so that you'd really see if you could shape you up. In fact, we kind of like do that today even. If a new bhakta comes, we throw him in the kitchen. So I'm going to go on a little bit here. Got some more here. This is kind of neat. This is when Maharaj was going to meet Srila Prabhupada. Am I going too long? I'll just go a little bit longer, not too much. But I'm just going to read a little here that this is at Kumbh Mela, and Maharaj was on the verge of meeting his spiritual master. After the association with the devotees, Maharaj became very excited. And I recall also that when I became a devotee, I'd hear Prabhupada's lectures, and I just couldn't wait till the day that I would meet His Divine Grace. I just longed and waited for that day. And we'd always be searching, where is Srila Prabhupada? And they said, well, today he's in New York. Wow. And then we think about New York, and okay, today he's in Mumbai. Oh, wow. You'd always ask every day, where is Srila Prabhupada? And then you just wonder, well, when is he going to get where I'm at? So Maharaj was going through that here. And I thought that was really very, very cool. And I think it's very neat because what it does here, it helps you understand how eager a devotee is to meet his spiritual master, or should be, and what a devotee will go through to accomplish that goal. That's what I was reading here, and that's what really made me feel a part of this. I felt I was feeling your desire, because it reminded me of my desire to see Srila Prabhupada. And so this is where we start. Srila Prabhupada, who was staying in a large tent surrounded by a corrugated fence, tin fencing, When I tried to enter, however, a big-bodied Western devotee guarding the gate stopped me and told me to return in the evening, when Srila Prabhupada would give darshan, or an audience. And I really related to that, because whenever you did go to a place where Srila Prabhupada was, there were big sannyasis like Bhavan,
Bhagavat.
some Bhagavat or somebody, yeah. They'd be big, huge guys. We were just a little guy, you're like, I was only like 21 years old. I was a little guy. And you saw this big, massive body, and he said, no. So move on. So you have to move on. You didn't argue. You wanted to just be a humble devotee. So this really reminded me of that. Disappointed, I headed back, but on my way I ran into Bhavananda Maharaj carrying a basket of vegetables he had brought from Mayapur. Come, he said, I'm going to see Srila Prabhupada. Excited that I'd be able to see Prabhupada after all, I joined him. When we got to the gate, the guard, recognizing Maharaj, offered his obeisances and stepped aside. As we approached the tent, I could just barely see Srila Prabhupada inside, sitting on the floor behind a desk. The light was dim, so I could not see clearly, but even a glimpse of Prabhupada's saffron form was enough to fill my heart with joy. I had been waiting for this moment for years. Wow. And felt that I had achieved the ultimate goal of my life. Hari Bol! And it's true. Every bit of it is true. Tears sprang from my eyes as I fell flat on the ground and offered my obeisances. When I rose, dazed and overwhelmed, I moved to go inside. But Rameshwar Swami, Prabhupada's secretary, stopped me and said that Srila Prabhupada was taking his lunch and that I should not enter. We're going to have to talk to him. I snapped back to the reality of my surroundings, both disappointed and regretful. Why did I offer obeisances from outside? I chided myself. Why had I not entered with Bhavananda Maharaj and bowed down inside? It would have been fine, and no one would have stopped me. Again, Maharaj just brings us into this real intimate kind of feeling. And this is what happened to a lot of devotees in those days. You wanted to get close to Srila Prabhupada, and then you couldn't get at it, and then you just scold yourself. You idiot, what are you doing, you space case? You had this opportunity, you blew it. And you'd actually be really, really tormented by it. I know that happened to me a couple occasions. I remember when Srila Prabhupada was sick in Mayapur, and they would carry a palanquin. They would put him in a palanquin, and they would carry him up. And I was standing right next to the palanquin. I just had my eyes on the handles, and I was waiting for that opportune moment. And just when I was going to jump on it, another devotee just boom. He grabbed those handles and he carried Prabhupada up to the stairs. And I think I don't know if I ever recovered from that. Never recovered. Okay. Again, I turned back to my tent with a heavy heart. I was starting to realize that it was not so easy to get close to Srila Prabhupada. He had thousands of disciples all over the world, and many were highly qualified and had been serving him for years. Who was I compared to them? I had only just joined and had hardly rendered any service. Accepting the reality of my situation, I decided not to try to approach Prabhupada directly. I would admire him, worship him, and serve him from a distance. Yes. So, there's a few more things I wanted to read, but I'll stop there because it's getting late and I don't want to divulge the whole book. I thought those were just nice captions to give a mood, a feeling of what it means to try to be a devotee in those days and see a supreme being like Srila Prabhupada, a pure devotee of the Lord. It's not easy. Hari Bol. I think what was another significant point was that Srila Prabhupada gave you initiation, all three, right? Like the first,
no,
and then
two first, and then sannyas after 3 months.
Which is amazing. Isn't that amazing? But Srila Prabhupada did that, and then he asked you to translate all these books in Bengali language, as you said.
Yeah.
Incredible. So Maharaj was very, you knew how to speak German, you knew how to speak Hindi, Bengali, and English. Okay, Chad. So what we're going to do now is have a book signing for those of you that would like to purchase one of these wonderful literatures, one of these wonderful books. So we're requesting tonight, because of a special situation here, that if you could give a donation of $20 for this particular, if you can give more, if you want to give $100, we'll take that too, for future printings. But I know we don't expect that. But if you could, please, you can come up one by one. Maharaj will sign the books for you, a signed copy of this wonderful book.
Yeah, just a minute, like I'll give a few books to
Okay, all right,
some
so
very
they'll come up
special.
slowly. Yeah. And you won't be disappointed. It's really a wonderful piece of literature, easy to read. I just read you a few of the captions to give you some real personal feeling or mood in this book. So I was told now that they do take checks and credit cards. So if you have a check or a credit card, they do take that.
No, Barbara, you don't have to pay. Please. It's my gift to you.
Coughing upstairs? I was wondering, who is it? You okay? Even when it's noisy, this is normal. Hare Krishna. Before I accept the book from Maharaj, I just wanted to say one thing. Some of you, most of you probably know what the term ghostwriter means. It means when a book is written anonymously. In other words, the person whose name is on the book is not the one who actually wrote it. They hired a professional writer, like many presidents, for instance, they write their biography, but it's actually written by a professional writer, not by the president themselves. But as Subhas and others have said, when you read Bhakti Maharaj's book, you know it was written by him. Because it's just like having a conversation with him. When people tell stories, they could be very extreme, very dramatic. Even drinking a cup of tea becomes a big drama. Or they're very boring. Maharaj is very, 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 very smooth. He draws you in, and then you just can't put it down. You can't stop. So I told him first time I read the manuscript, this is just like hearing from you directly, like having a conversation with you directly. So if you like hearing from Maharaj directly, you have to get this book. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you so much.